Hey everybody, John Grimsmo here. Eric Grimsmo up there, sharpening a knife. So if you hear the background noise, that's him sharpening. Today, I want to talk about Timascus and a special Norseman we're making, Norseman number 600. Now we've always sort of idolized the 100 numbers. I kept number 100, I kept number 200, they're in the drawer over there. Actually, 200 is in here in my pocket. 300 kind of never happened, 400 kind of never happened, 500 was auctioned off, and now 600 I'm giving to a very special, I'm selling to a very special customer. It is going to be made of a first for Grimsmo knives, black Timascus. So regular Timascus is made of several different alloys of titanium and anodizes to these amazing colors. Black Timascus also has zirconium in the mix, so it's black. Now zirconium has its own issues. It's somewhat unstable. It likes to catch fire. I've always been scared of it. I've always been nervous to try, but for just one small piece, I'm not too worried about it. So I want to talk about how I process the sheets of Timascus. Over the 6 years that we've been making knives, I've tried many different ways to hold these pieces. I've made a vacuum grid where I suck it down like what we're doing our foam cases with. That is too dangerous because this piece of metal cost $500 US dollar, like a lot of money. So yeah, the stack is pretty good. If in a vacuum seal, if the end mill goes too deep or you drill a hole or whatever and it loses vacuum, you might lose the whole piece. Unacceptable. I've tried little toe clamps that hold it in. That works all right. Drilling and bolting holes down also works fairly well. That's probably the easiest, quick and dirty way, is to make a bunch of mounting holes where you can bolt things down. And then you just have to watch out for bolt clearance with your tool. My favorite way, and the way that I've been doing it now for a few months, is with the two orange vices and the Carve Smart jaws. Carve Smart is this, you can see right here, this dovetailed jaw system that holds down. It has alignment pins in there, so it's all repeatable. So every time I put these two jaws in, I don't have to zero anything. My zero offset is right at that corner. And it's G57, I don't know. Let's look. Offsets, work offsets. Down, 18-inch Carve Smart, G54.1 P2. I never have to touch it. It's always great. It's always the same. So I made these jaws, these 18-inch long jaws, which can hold various lengths of Timascus. The other kind of annoying thing with Timascus is that every one is a different width. These are handmade, hand-forged by John Walker from Alpha Knife Supply. He is a really cool guy and really good at what he does. But even if I line up all the edges here, everyone's different. And it's okay. Everyone's a different thickness too, so you gotta watch out for that. Edges are a little crooked. I mean, you can see that's from the forging process. How cool is that? And forge welding titanium is not an easy task. They have absolutely mastered it. They actually invented it with Tom Ferry in the, I don't know, 80s, something like that. So all I do is I line it up to this corner right here. This piece is a little bit crooked, so I might stick it out just a hair. So it's sticking out there, but even there, because I don't want to, you know. So these are stepped. Notice they're not full depth. I think they're 125 or maybe 120 depth. Because I also make our blades from here, from 125 stock. So if I buy a long bar, I can chop it up. And then I simply tighten the two vices, which clamps it into place. And since these are double station vices, they're not fighting each other. One can just float freely while the other one tightens itself, and then the other one tightens. Works pretty good. I've just got a spacer back here because I have nothing in the back section, so this will get pinched. So for Timascus, since this piece is $500 or $600, I think the black Timascus was a bit more expensive. You want to maximize every inch
possible. So this is what I do. This is what I laid up in Fusion 360 for the black Timascus piece. My computer is utterly slow at the moment. I'm not sure what's going on. Windows update last night, I guess. Can never trust those. So I have my 2 handles, and there's another point I want to make in a second. I'm throwing in a bunch of thumb studs just because I want to maximize the material. 2 pocket clips, and this knife is getting a custom 2-off backspacer, which is going to look pretty darn sweet. It's going to be a flush, floating backspacer, but it's going to be tricky to make. So here's what I've been doing for the rasks lately. 2 handles and 3 pocket clips, and sometimes the piece of material, some of them are long enough that I could get these 3 extra clips. This piece is not. So literally for every different piece of material, I'm measuring it, I'm adjusting the size here of that sketch, and I'm seeing how many pieces I can fit, and sometimes you twist them and sometimes you know. So I'm going through the whole thing with a 93 thou end mill. And you see how I have this border on the outside. So my 93 thou end mill will come to here and it'll stop because I don't want to cut into the aluminum soft jaws. And then you can see I have the thumb studs overlapped with the 93 thou border. So my end mill will go around the thumb stud like this and just clear between the 2. So that works quite well. The other point I want to make with Timascus, a few months ago I did a video on Timascus and I said pretty side, ugly side, and some people didn't like that. So I'm going to edit those words as patterned side and random side. I don't know what it's called. Actually I do. The way that they make it, I don't know, the way they forge weld it, you see we have several different patterns here. This is amoeba, this is Texas wind, there's a hyperdrive, this is a twist, very cool looking. Hyperdrive, this is the back side of hyperdrive, this is the front side of hyperdrive. Super cool pattern, right? You don't get that pattern if you use this side. So you see all the pieces, even the different patterns, have a very similar looking backside. And they call this Nebula Pattern. Now, don't get me wrong, Nebula looks really cool in its own right. It just looks different. It doesn't give you this crisp, defined pattern. So, as you're making a knife, and you have 2 handles that have to look the same, well, if I make 2 handles in this orientation, I now have 2 display side handles. Or I have one with the nice pattern and one with the back side of the pattern. Does that make sense? And I made this mistake several times. And then you have a non-matching set of handles, which kind of sucks. If you want to do it on purpose and you want to use Nebula for both sides, I've done that before. It does look really cool. It looks very cloudy, very like you're looking into space. And it does look cool. It's just not my favorite because Timascus is the pattern. So I've heard from some people that 25% of knife makers like to use Nebula 25% of the time. Some knife makers. So there are people out there that absolutely love it. I just want to do a little public service announcement to be wary with how you lay out your material. So do a book matched set or whatever they call it in woodworking. Instead of trying to, you can try to maximize your material and like overlap them like this and stuff, but if you end up with 2 display side handles, then you're screwed. So just be very cautious with how you lay them out. Same goes for the pocket clip. Pattern side, non-pattern side. My clips have a curve to them. This is a Norseman clip. I don't have a Rask blank right here. Sure I do. It's a regular titanium Rask blank. If I lay this out one way, it'll work. If I lay it out the other way, it'll be backwards. So if you're trying to make 3 separate components, just make sure you know what you're doing when you lay them out. By the way, these are some finished handles. If you can just see, this is the Rubik's pattern in there. Now when I machine Timascus, simply
I like to take the feed rate knob and I like to go 1, 2, 3, 70%. I used to go 50%. It makes it cut half as fast, you know, half speed. Now I do 70%. Brad Southard got me to kick it up a little bit. He said 75, so that works fine. And use sharp tools, because something about this, it's transitioning from regular titanium, like 6Al4V, to CP titanium to something else. So it's going from regular to gummy to hard to regular to gummy to hard, and it kind of wears tools quickly. So when we use a ball end mill to do this fluted starburst pattern, I have to be very careful to use sharp tools, otherwise it smears and looks gross. This one has a little bit of smearing, but I'm pretty sure I used a new tool on this. And this will polish out just fine. If I did 2 handles in a row or more than that, it would get worse, and I just got to be careful with that. And here I've got a set of handles. This is the other thing. Label. Sharpie wears off with all the coolant and stuff. So Sharpie, and now we have this little map. The 2 back ones were that, the 2 front ones were that, 2 here, 2 here, 2 here, 2 here. And then we have 2 amoebas right here, 2 kaleidoscopes right here, kaleidoscope clip. Label everything. It's so easy to get confused. When you buy a lot and you have a lot to work with, there's 6 different patterns here, you're gonna lose track. So we have Rubik's box, amoeba box, and we triple check everything. Even the authenticity card will say the pattern, hopefully, if we can keep track of it, you know, at the end. So I'm just gonna finish my tool path here and get this thing cutting.